Hey guys, in today's video we're going to tell an unbelievable and deeply impactful story. You will meet Wyatt Ashcroft, a man who survived the devastating Fukushima earthquake and during his near-death experience received a divine message about the future of our planet. Stay with us until the end, because what he discovered could change the way you see the world. And before we start, let us know in the comments which city you're watching, and, of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our next videos. Hello, my name is Wyatt Ashcroft. I'm here today, August 17th, 2024, to share with you an experience that completely changed my life. Before I get into the details of what happened, I think it's important for you to get to know me a little better. I was born and raised in a small town in the interior of the United States. Since I was a child, I have always been fascinated by Japan. I can't explain exactly where this interest came from, but I remember spending hours leafing through magazines and books about Japanese culture. The images of ancient temples mixed with futuristic skyscrapers enchanted me. As I grew up, this fascination only increased. I watched all the Japanese films and anime I could find. I studied the language in my spare time and dreamed of the day when I could finally visit the country. However, life continued its normal course. I graduated in engineering, got a good job, and built my career. But the dream of visiting Japan never died. For years, I saved every penny I could, planning the trip of my dreams. And finally, in 2011, I was able to make that wish come true. Little did I know that this trip would not only fulfill a childhood dream, but would completely change my perception of life and death. Today, at 42 years old, I look back and see how that experience shaped who I am. I work as an engineer. I have a quiet life. But I carry with me a unique perspective on the world and our place in it. I'm not famous. I haven't written books or given talks about what happened. I prefer to keep a discreet life, sharing my story only with people close to me and, now, with you. What I'm about to tell you may seem unbelievable. There are times when I even doubt whether everything really happened, but the truth is that every detail of this experience is etched in my memory in a way that no other event in my life has managed to capture. It's as if every second of that moment was carved into my soul. I ask that you listen with an open mind. I'm not here to convince anyone, or to preach some kind of absolute truth. I'm just sharing what I experienced, what I felt, and how it changed my perception of the world. Perhaps my story can bring some comfort, some reflection, or simply a new perspective to you. So, let's go back to March 2011. I was 29 years old, at the height of my excitement, finally stepping onto Japanese soil. I arrived in Japan at the beginning of March 2011. The cold still persisted, but I could already feel the first signs of spring approaching. I remember leaving Narita Airport and immediately being enveloped by Tokyo's unique atmosphere. It was as if he had entered another world, a place where the past and the future coexisted in perfect harmony. I spent the first few days exploring Tokyo, marveling at every detail. The bustling streets of Shibuya, the peaceful temples in Asakusa, the cutting-edge technology in Akihabara. Every corner of the city seemed to tell a different story. But as fascinating as Tokyo was, my heart longed to explore the Japanese countryside, where I believed I could experience the true essence of Japanese culture. On March 10th, I took a train to a small town in the southern part of Fukushima Prefecture. I remember looking out the train window, watching the landscape gradually change. Skyscrapers gave way to lush green mountains and rice fields. I felt a peace wash over me as we moved away from the hustle and bustle of the great metropolis. I arrived in the small town late in the afternoon. It was a charming place with narrow streets and traditional houses. A crystal clear river ran through the city, its waters reflecting the orange sunset sky. I stayed in a traditional inn, a ryokan, where I was welcomed with the warm hospitality so characteristic of the Japanese. That night, I lay on the soft futon, listening to the gentle sound of the river and the chirping of night birds. I felt immense gratitude for being there, fulfilling a dream that I had cherished for so long. I fell asleep with a smile on my face, looking forward to exploring the city the next day. The morning of March 11th dawned clear and cool. I woke up early, had a traditional Japanese breakfast prepared by the inn's owner, and went out to explore. I visited a nearby ancient temple, chatted with locals, with my limited Japanese and lots of gestures, and enjoyed local cuisine at a small family restaurant. In the afternoon, I went back to the inn to rest a little. I was on the balcony of my room, admiring the view of the mountains and the river, when everything changed. It was so sudden that for the first few seconds my brain couldn't process what was happening. The ground started to shake. At first I thought it was just a small tremor, something common in Japan. But the intensity quickly increased. In a matter of seconds, the world around me turned into chaos. The sound was deafening, a deep roar from the bowels of the earth, mixed with the noise of breaking glass and collapsing structures. I tried to stand up, but it was impossible to keep my balance. The ground moved like liquid, rippling beneath my feet. I saw trees swaying violently, streetlights falling, and buildings swaying in ways that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Panic took over me. My mind screamed at me to run, to find a safe place, but my body didn't respond. I was paralyzed by fear and disbelief of what was happening. It was then that I heard a deafening boom coming from above. I looked up at the ceiling and saw cracks quickly forming. I didn't have time to react. In an instant, a large section of the ceiling collapsed on me. The pain was immediate and overwhelming. I felt the weight of the rubble pressing me against the ground, knocking the air from my lungs. The dense dust made me cough and choke. I tried to move, but I was completely stuck. As the earthquake continued, I struggled to breathe, feeling the weight of the rubble more and more. The fear of death was real and immediate. I thought about my family, my friends, all the things I still wanted to do in life. The idea of dying there alone in a foreign country was terrifying. Little by little, the tremors began to subside. The silence that followed was almost as frightening as the noise of the earthquake. I could hear distant screams, the sound of sirens, and the occasional crash. There, trapped under the rubble, with pain in every inch of my body, I began to accept that this could be the end of me. I closed my eyes, trying to find some comfort in the happy memories of my life. It was at that moment, between consciousness and unconsciousness, that something extraordinary happened. I can't say exactly when it happened. At one point, I was struggling to breathe under the rubble, feeling every fiber of my body scream in pain. In the next moment, everything changed. The pain disappeared. Completely. It was as if someone had turned off a switch, and all physical sensation simply went away. The weight of the rubble, the burning in the lungs, even the taste of dust in the mouth. It was all gone. I opened my eyes, or at least I thought I had. He was no longer trapped under the debris. In fact, he was no longer at the inn, not even in Japan. He was surrounded by a light, but it wasn't a light like any I'd ever seen before. It was a light that not only illuminated but seemed to emanate from all directions and nowhere at the same time. It was bright, but not dazzling. Warm, but not in a physical way. It was as if the light itself was made of love. Yes, love is the closest word I can use to describe it, although it doesn't do the feeling justice. In this light, I felt completely at peace. Any anxiety, fear, or worry I might have felt moments before had melted away. It was as if I had finally arrived home after a long journey. It was then that I heard the voice. It was not a voice in the conventional sense. It wasn't coming from any particular direction, but it seemed to resonate within me. It was soft, comforting, and somehow familiar. Immediately, without knowing how or why, I knew I was hearing the voice of God. "You are safe," said the voice. These 3 simple words carried so much meaning, so much certainty, that I felt as if a huge weight had been lifted from my shoulders. In that moment, I understood that I truly was safe, not just from the earthquake or the physical situation my body was in, but in a deeper, eternal way. I felt enveloped by unconditional love, a love so pure and intense that it is difficult to describe in human words. It was as if every part of me, every thought, every action, every flaw, and every virtue was completely known and completely accepted. In this state of peace and total acceptance, I began to ask questions. Not verbally, but with thought. Why is this happening? I asked, referring not just to my situation, but to the earthquake, to the suffering that I knew was happening at that moment. The answer came not in words, but in understanding. I understood that natural disasters like earthquakes were part of the forces of nature, part of the functioning of the planet. They were not punishments or deliberate acts, but simply the result of natural laws in action. I also understood that God did not directly interfere in these events or in human free will, but the divine presence was always there, offering comfort, strength, and guidance to those who suffered. As I absorbed this understanding, the light around me seemed to expand. Suddenly I found myself in a place of indescribable beauty. It was like a garden, but more vibrant and real than anything I had ever seen on Earth. The colors were more intense, the sounds more harmonious, and there was a sense of life pulsing through everything. In this paradisiacal place I saw people. Some I recognized immediately. My grandmother, who had passed away years before, was there, smiling at me lovingly. Others were familiar faces, although I couldn't name who they were. Everyone seemed to be in a state of perfect happiness and peace. My grandmother came over and hugged me. Her embrace conveyed a comfort and love that went beyond any earthly experience. We didn't exchange words, but somehow we communicated. She assured me that she was fine, that she was happy, and that she was always looking out for me. As I took it all in, marveling at the perfection and peace of the place, I felt a subtle shift. The voice, which I recognized as the voice of God, spoke again. Your journey on earth is not yet over. There is more for you to do before you return home. I felt a pang of sadness. Part of me wanted to stay in that place of eternal peace and love, but at the same time, I understood that there was a purpose for me, something important that I still needed to accomplish on earth. It was at that moment that I noticed a presence next to me. It was a being of light, unlike anything I had ever seen or imagined. He did not have a defined shape, but he emanated an aura of wisdom and power. The being of light began to show me visions. I saw images of Earth's future. Some were beautiful and inspiring, showing technological advances, cures for disease, people united in peace. But others were disturbing. I saw natural disasters, conflicts, famine. Then the being of light spoke, his voice resonating not in my ears but directly in my mind. A great change is coming. Starting August 20th, 2024, you must begin to prepare. Stock up on food and supplies. Difficult times will come, but you will have an important role to play. The message was clear and urgent. I felt the weight of responsibility, but also a sense of purpose. I understood that I was being entrusted with important knowledge, something that could make a difference in the lives of many people. As I absorbed this information, I felt a shift. The light started to fade, and I felt like I was being pulled back. God's voice spoke one last time. Remember, you are never alone. I will always be with you, guiding and strengthening. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the experience ended. The pain returned. The weight of the rubble was real again. But something inside me had fundamentally changed. I knew I had a purpose, a mission, and with that certainty, I found strength that I didn't know I had. Returning to consciousness was like emerging from a deep dream. Physical reality hit me with all its intensity. The pain was almost unbearable, every breath a challenge. The taste of dust and blood in my mouth was bitter and metallic. But despite all this, I felt strangely calm. I tried to move, but I was completely immobilized by the rubble. The darkness was almost total, with only a few beams of light penetrating through the gaps in the wreckage. I had no idea how long it had been since the earthquake. It could have been minutes, hours, or even days. I began to hear distant sounds, sirens, screams, the noise of heavy machinery. Rescue teams were working, looking for survivors. I tried to scream for help, but my voice came out as a hoarse whisper. My throat was dry, my lungs full of dust. The hours dragged by slowly. The thirst was torturous, the hunger a constant discomfort. But what kept me conscious, what kept me from giving in to despair, was the vivid memory of the experience I had just had. The peace I felt, the unconditional love I experienced, the message I received. It all gave me the strength to keep going. During this time, I reflected on everything I had experienced. I thought about my family, my friends, all the things I still wanted to do in life. But above all, he thought about the responsibility he now carried, the message about the future, about the need to prepare for August 20th, 2024, echoed in my mind. I can't say how long I was trapped there. Time seemed to have lost its meaning. I alternated between states of consciousness and unconsciousness, sometimes dreaming of the light and peace I had experienced, other times struggling with the despair of my current situation. It was during one of those moments of semi-consciousness that I heard it. At first it was just a distant, almost imperceptible sound, but it got stronger. Voices, steps, the sound of rubble being removed. I gathered all my strength and screamed. My voice was weak, but it was enough. I heard answering screams. The sound of activity increased. They had found me. The next few hours were a blur. I remember gentle hands touching me, comforting voices reassuring me I was safe. The pain of clearing the rubble, the relief of finally breathing fresh air. Daylight, so bright it hurt my eyes after so long in the dark. I was rushed to a makeshift hospital. Doctors and nurses ran from side to side, caring for the countless injured. I was treated for severe dehydration, bruises, and some broken bones. But considering the circumstances, my condition was surprisingly good. Doctors called my survival miraculous. While in the hospital, I watched the news about the earthquake and subsequent tsunami. The devastation was incomprehensible. Entire cities had been wiped off the map. The number of dead and missing increased every hour. And then came the news about the Fukushima nuclear plant. The disaster seemed to have no end. In the midst of all this tragedy, I felt strangely at peace. Not that he didn't feel pain for the suffering of so many people. I felt it, and deeply. But the experience I had gave me a different perspective. I knew that somehow this was all part of a bigger plan, even if I couldn't fully understand it. After a few days, I was transferred to a larger hospital in Tokyo, where I received more specialized treatment. It was there that I finally managed to contact my family in the United States. The joy and relief in their voices when they found out I was alive is something I will never forget. My physical recovery was relatively quick. Within a few weeks, he was strong enough to travel home. But I knew that the real journey, the journey to understand and fulfill the purpose revealed to me, was just beginning. The flight back to the United States was a surreal experience. Sitting comfortably in the plane seat, with a hot meal in front of me and a movie playing on the screen, it seemed impossible that just a few weeks earlier I had been trapped under the rubble, fighting for my life. I looked out the window, watching the Pacific stretch endlessly below us. I thought about everything that had happened, the transcendental experience I had, the message I received. How could I explain this to people? How could I carry out the mission I was given without looking completely crazy? When the plane landed on American soil, I was greeted by my family. My mother's tight hug, the tears in my father's eyes, my sister's relieved smile. It all made me realize how much I had missed them, how blessed I had been to have the chance to see them again. The first few days at home were a whirlwind of emotions. Everyone wanted to know what had happened, how I had survived. I told the story of the earthquake, the collapse of the building, the rescue. But I hesitated to talk about the near-death experience. Not because I doubted her, I knew with every fiber of my being that it had been real, but because I was afraid that people wouldn't understand, that they would judge me. It was my sister Eleanor who first noticed that something had changed in me. "You look different," she said to me one night as we sat on the porch at home. Calmer somehow, like I found some kind of peace. I looked at her, saw the concern and love in her eyes, and decided that if there was anyone I could share my experience with, it was her. And so, on that quiet spring night, I told Eleanor everything that had happened. The light, the feeling of unconditional love, the conversation with God, the visions of the future, the message about preparing myself from August 20th, 2024. Eleanor listened silently, her eyes widening occasionally but never interrupting me. When I finished, we were silent for a long time. Finally, she said, "Wyatt, I don't know what to say. It's a lot to process. But I believe in you. I don't know if I understand everything, but I believe you've experienced something extraordinary." The relief I felt was immense. Having someone, especially someone as close as my sister, believe in me was like a weight lifted off my shoulders. In the days and weeks that followed, I shared my experience with a few more people close to me. My parents, although clearly skeptical, listened to me respectfully. Some friends reacted with fascination, others with polite disbelief. One of these friends, Toshio, a co-worker of Japanese origin, surprised me with his reaction. After listening to my story, he told me about concepts in Eastern spirituality that seemed to have parallels with what I had experienced. It was through him that I began to explore different spiritual traditions, seeking to better understand what had happened to me. I went back to work, resumed my daily routine. But nothing was like before. Every moment seemed imbued with new meaning. The everyday worries that once consumed me now seemed trivial. I found myself constantly thinking about the future, about the message I had received, about what I should do to prepare. I started researching near-death experiences, reading accounts from other people who had gone through something similar. I was surprised to discover how many stories had elements in common with mine. The light, the sense of peace and love, meeting deceased loved ones. It was during this research that I met Dr. Victor Lawrence, a psychiatrist specializing in near-death experiences. I decided to make an appointment with him, hoping he could help me better understand what had happened to me. Dr. Lawrence welcomed me into his cozy office, filled with books and overlooking a peaceful park. He listened to my story attentively, asking occasional questions but mostly letting me talk. When I finished, he sat back in his chair and looked at me thoughtfully. "Wyatt," he said, "what you experienced is consistent with many other NDE accounts I have studied over the years. The feeling of peace, the encounter with deceased loved ones, the experience of a loving light, these are all common elements." I felt relief upon hearing this. It was comforting to know that my experience was not unique, that others had gone through something similar. Dr. Lawrence continued, "However, the specific message you received about preparing for future events is more unusual. I cannot say whether this is an actual premonition or a manifestation of your subconscious processing the trauma you have experienced. What I can say is that this experience has clearly had a profound impact on you, and it's important that you find a healthy way to integrate it into your life." I left Dr. Lawrence's office with a lot to think about. He gave me some tools to deal with the post-traumatic stress I was still experiencing, and encouraged me to continue exploring the meaning of my experience in a way that made sense to me. In the months that followed, I continued my normal life outwardly, going to work, spending time with friends and family. But internally, I was on a journey of self-discovery and preparation. The date of August 20th, 2024 was always in the back of my mind, a constant reminder of the responsibility I felt had been placed on my shoulders. And so, the days turned into weeks, the weeks into months, and the months into years. The world continued to spin, with its ups and downs, its joys and tragedies, and I kept watching, waiting, preparing for whatever the future might bring. The years following my near-death experience were a mix of outward normalcy and profound inner transformation. As my daily life ran its course, the engineering job, the family dinners, the outings with friends, my mind was constantly focused on the future, on the mission I felt I had been given. At first, I didn't know exactly how to prepare for something I didn't yet fully understand. The message I received was clear in its timing. August 20th, 2024, but vague in its details. What exactly would happen? What kind of change was coming? I started with small actions. I increased my savings, cutting back on unnecessary expenses and living more frugally. I started learning about survival techniques, first through books and online videos, then by attending some practical courses on the weekends. I learned about water purification, first aid techniques, how to grow a garden. My family and close friends noticed these changes. Some expressed concern, fearing that I was developing some kind of post-traumatic paranoia. Others, like my sister Eleanor, supported me, even if they didn't fully understand. It was during this period that I met Nathaniel Crowley. Nathaniel was a survivor of a serious car accident and, like me, had a near-death experience. We met at a support group for disaster survivors, and I immediately felt a connection with him. Nathaniel was the first person, besides my sister, with whom I felt completely comfortable sharing all the details of my experience. He listened with an understanding that only someone who had been through something similar could have. "Wyatt," he told me after I finished my story, "I believe experiences like ours don't happen by chance. You've been given a message, a mission. It's important that you take it seriously." Nathaniel shared his own preparation journey with me. He believed that events like the Fukushima earthquake were signs of greater change to come. "The world is at a turning point," he often said. "We need to be ready not just to survive, but to help others when the time comes." Inspired by Nathaniel, I stepped up my preparation efforts. I started stocking up on non-perishable food and essential supplies. I learned about alternative energy sources and installed solar panels on my home. I invested in a rainwater collection system. At the same time, I struggled to maintain a balance. I didn't want my life to be consumed by preparing for an uncertain future. I continued my work, maintained my social relationships, sought moments of joy and relaxation. In 2020, when the COVID-19 pandemic hit the world, I felt a mix of validation and apprehension. On the one hand, my prior preparation helped me to better deal with the lockdown and the uncertainties of that period. On the other, I wondered if this was the event I should prepare for, or just a prelude to something bigger to come. As the years passed and 2024 approached, I felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation building inside me. The date of August 20th, which once seemed so far away, was now becoming an imminent reality. In early 2024, I intensified my preparations. I increased my stock of non-perishable food, water, and medical supplies. I checked and updated my emergency kit. I spent hours studying maps of my area, identifying escape routes and safe spots, all this while trying to maintain a semblance of normalcy in my everyday life. My family and close friends noticed my growing concern. Eleanor, my sister, confronted me about this one Sunday afternoon. "Wyatt," she said, sitting across from me at the kitchen table, "I'm worried about you. You seem tense, more than usual." I sighed, running my hand through my hair. "I know, Elle. It's just, the date is coming up. August 20th. I feel like I need to be ready, but I don't know exactly what for." Eleanor took my hand, her eyes full of concern. "I understand. I just don't want you to lose sight of the present as you prepare for an uncertain future." His words hit me. She was right, of course. Over the past few months, I had become so focused on preparation that I was neglecting important aspects of my life. I decided to make a conscious effort to find a better balance. In June, I received an unexpected call from Nathaniel Crowley. He was organizing a gathering of people who, like us, had had near-death experiences and felt that something significant was about to happen. "It's not a cult or anything like that," he assured me over the phone. "Just a group of people sharing experiences and ideas about how we can prepare and help others if something actually happens." I decided to participate. The meeting took place on a weekend in July, in a small inn in the mountains. We were a diverse group, men and women of different ages and backgrounds united by our extraordinary experiences. Hearing others' stories was both comforting and disturbing. Many had received messages similar to mine, warnings of impending changes. Some spoke of natural catastrophes, others of social or spiritual transformations. A man named Marcus, a former military man who had an NDE while deployed in the Middle East, shared a perspective that resonated with me deeply. "It doesn't matter exactly what happens," he said. "What matters is how we react. We were chosen not to predict the future, but to help shape it. Our task is to keep hope alive, to be a beacon of light in the difficult times that may come." His words resonated with me. I realized that I had spent so much time worrying about physical preparation that I had neglected spiritual and emotional preparation. I came home with a new perspective. In the days that followed, in addition to continuing my practical preparations, I began to meditate regularly, read spiritual texts from various traditions, and look for ways to strengthen my emotional resilience. I also decided to be more open with the people around me. I shared more details about my experience and concerns with some trusted coworkers. To my surprise, many were receptive. Some even asked for advice on how to prepare for emergencies. As August approached, I felt a growing tension in the air. It wasn't just me. It felt like the whole world was on the brink of something. The news was full of reports of extreme weather events, geopolitical tensions, and economic instability. In the first week of August, I had a vivid dream. I was back in that place of light I experienced during my NDE. The voice I recognized as God spoke to me again. "Remember, Wyatt, you are not alone. What lies ahead may seem frightening, but it is part of a greater plan. Your task is to be a beacon of hope and compassion. Trust in the love you have experienced here. It will be your strength in the difficult days to come." I woke up with a renewed sense of peace and purpose. I realized that no matter what happened on August 20th or later, my true mission was simple: be present, be compassionate, and help where I could. And so here I am, on August 17th, 2024, 3 days before the date that has dominated my thoughts for so many years. My house is stocked, my plans are ready, but more important than that, my heart is open. I don't know what the future will bring, but I know that I will face whatever comes with courage, compassion, and the knowledge that I am not alone on this journey. Today is August 17th, 2024, just 3 days before the date that has been the focus of my life for the past 13 years. Sitting here in my home office, I watch the sunset through the window. The sky is painted in shades of orange and pink, a beauty that reminds me how wonderful and mysterious this world we live in is. Over the past few days, I have been reflecting a lot on my journey since that fateful day in Fukushima. The near-death experience I had fundamentally changed who I am and how I see the world. I vividly remember the feeling of absolute peace, the unconditional love I experienced, the certainty that there is something greater than us guiding the universe. But I also think about the struggles, the doubts, the moments of fear and uncertainty that I have faced over these years. There were days when I questioned everything: my sanity, the reality of my experience, the purpose of the mission I felt I had been given. There were times when the weight of responsibility I felt I carried seemed overwhelming. However, looking back, I see how each challenge, each moment of doubt, strengthened me and prepared me for this moment. I learned to trust my intuition, to find balance between preparation and acceptance, to value each day as a precious gift. I think about all the people who have been part of this journey with me. My sister Eleanor, whose unwavering faith in me has been an anchor in my most difficult times. Nathaniel Crowley, whose own experiences helped me better understand mine. Dr. Victor Lawrence, who helped me process my experience from a psychological perspective. And so many others, friends, colleagues, even strangers, whose stories and insights have enriched my understanding of the world and myself. I look at the preparations I've made over the years. My pantry is well stocked. I have a solar energy system installed and a well-designed emergency plan. But I understand now that the most important preparation I made was internal, the emotional and spiritual strength I cultivated, the compassion I learned to nurture for myself and others. I don't know what will happen on August 20th or in the days that follow. Part of me still fears the unknown, the possibility of catastrophes or drastic changes. But another part, a part that has grown stronger and stronger, feels a strange peace. I know that no matter what happens, I am not alone. The same force that guided me through the rubble at Fukushima, that showed me a glimpse of the divine, is still with me. I think about the words I heard in my recent dream. Your task is to be a beacon of hope and compassion. I understand now that perhaps this is the true preparation that was asked of me. It's not just about stocking up on supplies or making emergency plans, but about cultivating the ability to remain centered, compassionate, and hopeful in the face of adversity. I look at the phone on my desk. For the past few days, I've been resisting the urge to call everyone I love, to warn them of possible imminent danger. But I understand that my mission is not to spread fear or panic. It's about being ready to offer help and comfort if and when necessary. Tomorrow, I plan to spend the day with my family. I will not talk about my concerns or expectations. Instead, I will just enjoy their company, savoring every moment, every laugh, every hug. If drastic changes really are coming, I want to enter this new phase with a heart full of love and gratitude. On Monday, August 19th, I will go to work as usual. I will do my best to be fully present, to be kind to my colleagues, to do my job with dedication and integrity. If this is one of the last days of normal, I want to live it fully, with awareness and appreciation. And then, when the sun rises on August 20th, I'll be ready. I don't know what the day will bring, if there will be dramatic changes or if it will pass like any other. But I know that I will face whatever comes with courage, compassion, and faith. The experience I had in Fukushima showed me that there is more to this life than we can see or understand. I trust that whatever greater plan is at work, I have a role to play in it. As the last ray of sunlight disappears over the horizon, I feel a wave of gratitude wash over me. Gratitude for life, for the experiences I've had, for the people I love, even for the challenges I've faced. Because every part of this journey has brought me here, to this moment of acceptance and peace. Tomorrow will be another day. And whether it is ordinary or extraordinary, I will be here, present, open, ready for whatever comes. Because in the end, I understood that true preparation is not about predicting or controlling the future, but about being fully alive and aware in the present. Today is August 17th, 2024, and the anticipation for the 20th is almost palpable. The last few days have been an emotional roller coaster, alternating between moments of calm acceptance and spikes of acute anxiety. Yesterday, I spent the day with my family, as I had planned. We cooked a big breakfast together. Pancakes, eggs, and bacon, everyone's favorite. The kitchen was full of laughter and lively conversation. I watched each of them, my parents, Eleanor, her husband, and their children, with a new appreciation. Every smile, every gesture, seemed precious and meaningful. After breakfast, we all went for a picnic at the local park. The day was perfect for this, warm but not muggy, with an occasional gentle breeze. While the children ran and played, we adults sat on the grass, talking about everything and nothing. At one point, my father turned to me and said, "You seem different, Wyatt, more intense somehow." I smiled in response, feeling a rush of emotion. If he only knew the inner turmoil I was facing. But he was right. Despite the uncertainty of what was to come, I felt more alive, more present than ever. The day passed too quickly. When it was time to say goodbye, I hugged each of them a little tighter, a little longer than usual. If they noticed something different, they didn't mention it. Today I woke up before sunrise. I spent some time meditating, centering myself for the days ahead. At work, I made a conscious effort to be fully present. I greeted my colleagues with genuine interest. I listened attentively during meetings. I dedicated myself completely to my tasks. During lunch, a colleague commented, "You look different today, Wyatt. More focused somehow." I smiled and replied, "Just trying to appreciate every moment." He nodded, seeming to understand. At the end of the day, when I was about to leave the office, I stopped for a moment. I looked around at the tables, the computers, the plants in the windows. Everything seemed so normal, so everyday. And yet, there was a feeling of parting? I shook my head, pushing that thought away. I didn't know what the next few days would bring, but there was no point in speculating. I got home and spent the night going over my preparations one last time. I checked my stocks, reread my emergency plans. Everything is in order. So I sat on the back porch watching the stars appear in the night sky. The night is calm, only the distant sound of crickets breaking the silence. I thought about calling Eleanor, Nathaniel, Dr. Lawrence. But what would I say? I'm looking forward to what might happen in 3 days. That would sound ridiculous even to me. Additionally, I promised myself not to spread fear or anxiety. If something really happens, there will be time for alerts and actions. As I prepare for bed, a sense of calm washes over me. I remember the light I experienced during my NDE, the unconditional love I felt. Whatever the next few days bring, I think that light, that love is still there. They are the true reality, more real and lasting than any earthly event. I fall asleep with this certainty in my heart, ready to face whatever the next few days bring. Today is August 17th, 2024, and I'm sitting at my desk, the first lights of dawn beginning to illuminate the sky outside. August 20th is just 3 days away, the date that has occupied my thoughts for more than a decade, the day I was told to prepare for. I woke up before my alarm, with an almost palpable sense of anticipation. My first instinct was to run to the window, half expecting to see... what? But no. The world outside looks exactly the same as yesterday. Cars passing by, people walking to work, the sun rising over the horizon as it does every day. I sit down to meditate, as I do every morning, but my mind is restless. Images of my near-death experience in Fukushima flash through my head. The light, the unconditional love, the voice that instructed me to prepare for this day. I take a deep breath, trying to center myself. I turn on the TV, scrolling through the news channels. There is nothing out of the ordinary. The same old stories, politics, economics, some natural disasters in distant parts of the world. Nothing that seems like a harbinger of a big change. I check my phone. No urgent messages from Nathaniel or others in our group. No emergency alerts. Everything seems normal. A part of me feels relieved. Another part feels anxious? Confused? For so long, I prepared for something big, something dramatic, and now, with just 3 days to go, it all seems so ordinary. But then I remember the words I heard in my recent dream. Your task is to be a beacon of hope and compassion. Maybe the change I'm waiting for isn't something external, visible. Maybe it's something more subtle, more internal. I decide to follow my normal routine for the next few days. I take a shower, get dressed for work. As I prepare my breakfast, I notice that my hand is shaking slightly. I take another deep breath, trying to calm my nerves. Before leaving the house, I stop for a moment. I look at the supplies I've accumulated, at the carefully crafted emergency plans. Regardless of what happens in the next few days, I think, this preparation was not in vain. It taught me about resilience, about being ready not just physically but mentally and emotionally. I leave the house and start my walk to work. The morning air is cool with a slight breeze. I make a conscious effort to notice every detail around me. The birdsong, the smell of freshly cut grass, the smile of a beckoning neighbor. On the way, I pass an elderly woman struggling to carry her shopping. On a normal day, I might have walked right past it, busy with my own thoughts. Today, I stop and offer help. Her grateful smile lights up her face, and I feel a rush of warmth in my chest. It's a small gesture, but I suddenly feel useful, as if he was fulfilling some kind of purpose. I arrive at the office and greet my colleagues with a genuine smile. Throughout the day, I make an effort to be more present in each interaction. I listen more closely, offering words of encouragement where I can. It's subtle, but I feel a difference in the atmosphere around me. During lunch, I get a text from Nathaniel. "Are you ready?" I answer yes, that I am as prepared as I can be. He responds with a single word. Good. I feel a shiver run down my spine. As the day progresses, I find myself constantly checking the news, waiting for something. But hours pass, and nothing extraordinary happens. The sun sets, and the world continues to spin as it always does. Returning home, I feel a mix of emotions. Anxiety, certainly. What will the next few days bring? But also a strange calm. I've spent so much time preparing for what's to come. Now all I can do is wait and be ready. Sitting here now, watching the last lights of August 17, 2024 fade away, I reflect on everything that has happened in the last few years, and I realize something important. Preparing for this moment has changed my life in ways I can't even begin to measure. It made me more aware, more compassionate, more present. It connected me with incredible people, led me to explore aspects of spirituality and existence that I would never have considered before.